What's up, y'all? It's your boy Kev on stage, my brother
Jay. No way. What up, man?
And we are in Phoenix here, and we wanted to talk about the George Zimmerman not guilty verdict. We wanted to talk about it last night, but we're too busy processing all the information. So I'll start real quick. My wife and I, and mainly my wife, watched pretty much every hour of the trial. So as far as the verdict's concerned, I'm not surprised they came back with not guilty. And not because it's white America wants to hold a black man down, none of that stuff. Because based on Florida law and, United States law, reasonable doubt, the prosecution didn't do enough to erase the possibility of reasonable doubt. One of the police investigators agreed that Zimmerman racially profiled Trayvon, but he basically said they didn't have enough evidence to disprove George Zimmerman's claim of self-defense. They can't say who started the fight or not. And even in Florida law, you can start an altercation, and then if you feel like your life's in imminent danger or you're going to, receive grievous bodily harm, you have the right to use deadly force. So once I found out that it didn't even matter that George Zimmerman could have started the altercation, I was like, manslaughter if they're lucky, but more than likely he's going to get off. So I'm not really mad at the jury because under the law given, they came out with the verdict that the law prepared them to get. And like Denzel Washington said in Training Day, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. Jay, your thoughts on the verdict?
Well, when I heard the verdict, I was on the plane. I had literally just turned on my phone because we landed at Phoenix. And when I got the verdict, the first thing I was like, not guilty. Okay, maybe it's of the second-degree murder. Because I figured, okay, maybe the second degree was too harsh to prove. And then when I heard he was not guilty of the manslaughter, I was like, man, come on. He's not guilty of nothing?
Right. Not
guilty of nothing. Like, there's not one thing he did wrong there at all. And that was my whole concern, that he would just walk off scot-free like he's doing now.
And not even scot-free because they returned all the evidence against him. So he gets the same gun that he used.
Right.
And he also gets the $300,000 that they raised for him. He gets to keep that. In addition to a gun rights group funded his defense.
Yeah.
So he essentially made $300,000 off of this case. How do you feel about George Zimmerman? We were talking about this last night.
Yeah, I feel like he knows what happened. God knows what happened. And Trayvon knows what happened. But Trayvon's gone. And I think that if George Zimmerman if he knows he's guilty, then he has a lot of weight to carry the rest of his life. Because if he's a normal human being, right. We wanted that justice so bad. But I want to go back to something that Kev was saying about the law. I don't think the prosecution did bad. I think the defense did very well.
Right.
But I think the prosecution lost to the law and the way the law is written.
I agree.
That's what they lost to. I don't think they did a bad job at all.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, and the defense was good. And all the defense really has to do, these type of cases are weighted towards the defense because all I have to do, I don't have to prove you're wrong. I just have to prove you're not right enough.
Reasonable doubt.
I just have to poke enough holes in your argument. It's not like a weighted scale evenly. Yeah. You got to prove this and I got to prove that. No, you got to prove this and all I got to do is poke a hole here and there. And that's all they had to do. And since Trayvon's gone and there's no definitive witness, and the reason I say they didn't do well is because, or the defense did better, is because the witnesses for the prosecution ended up being witnesses for the defense. They flipped a lot of the witnesses. So, and as I'm watching the trial, I'm like, man, I see where they were trying to go, but the defense did a better job with that. And we ended up saying that 5 or 6 times, and that's why it's hard. But I totally agree with your statement. I think they lost to the law. Real quick, I want to talk about racial profiling. People say that George Zimmerman didn't racially profile Trayvon. The definition of racial profiling is used by law enforcement. Essentially, it means that I see a person based on their race or ethnicity and decide that I'm going to engage in either a traffic stop or an arrest. George Zimmerman's own statement of these a-holes always get away is racially profiling. These a-holes would be a young black man or black man, I don't think he could tell the age, dressed in this certain way. And people, I've heard a lot of, if he were white, what would have happened? If Trayvon was white, there is no case, there is no story, because white people don't have to prove they belong and they're not what you're looking for. One of the things we were taught as young kids is when you're a black man, you're down 14. People automatically think you're doing something wrong. You don't belong. Me and Jay have experienced this after play rehearsal in a building we owned. We were rehearsing in our own building, remember? Right. in Washington, and we finished a late rehearsal and we're just standing around talking, and it was late at night, and the police, flashed their lights on us, and we're like, what are you guys doing here? We were like, we're rehearsing for a play. No, really, what are you guys doing here? We're rehearsing for a play. We had to lift up the door and show them the set to prove, and it just reminds me of after slavery and you had free papers, you as a black man have to prove you belong here, and you have to prove that you're not doing anything wrong. And that's what Trayvon had to do. And the reason I'm upset about it is George Zimmerman thought he was doing right, or thought he was going to catch a criminal. And had he called the police and waited for the police, you're taught as a black man, you interact with the police a certain way. We're not allowed to cuss and fuss with the police like other races. We don't get that ability. We are quiet, put your hands up, not a threat. I feel like if had Trayvon been afforded that opportunity, if you think he's so wrong, he would have reacted in a way responsible to police. But a man you don't know doesn't have the right to stop you, or whatever the case. And I think that's the difference, is Trayvon's not reacting to, we haven't taught our kids what to do if somebody follows you. I mean, they're too young. Like that now we know, look, if you call the police, I probably won't even send my son out.
That's what I'm saying. And Trayvon didn't, you don't know what he thought. That dude, I was telling Kev and plenty of people have said this too, that dude could have thought somebody was trying to abduct me. Somebody was trying to take me away. And I mean, you hear all these horror stories that people are kidnapped. I mean, stuff happens on Craigslist all the time. You don't know what a man from a different race, I'm not even saying that he's white, a different race man from you is just creeping. That's creepy. Yeah. That's creepy for me.
And you're also taught, if somebody's following you, don't go directly home, because I don't want you to know where I live.
My family's at home. I don't know. I mean, dude, there was so much outrage on Twitter. There was so much outrage on Facebook. There was, all over the nation. We're friends and family from all over this nation, and we're interconnected. It doesn't matter what city we're in. And I was like, Kev, how come nobody on the jury was like us? How come not one person? It was 6 women, and I'm just saying, but all I'm saying, how come they didn't represent our mindset? Because they could have got cast out in the jury, when the jury selection thing, but you're telling me not one person on there can give the dude manslaughter, not one?
Somebody was saying on Twitter, like, their mothers, aren't these women mothers?
Yeah, but the thing was, they're not mothers of kids that will be in Trayvon's position to understand his position, and that's why I feel like we were underrepresented in the trial, to somebody to understand what we would go to and how we feel. That's the thing, and Geraldo was saying that most people think it's because President Obama stepped in and said that my son would have looked like Trayvon, and I don't think so. That's
why they didn't put.
They think that's why they even brought the charges. A lot of prosecutors were saying that there wasn't enough charges.
They didn't want to. They agreed. The Sanford police felt they didn't have enough to arrest, or they didn't have enough evidence to disprove Zimmerman's claim nor arrest him. And the only reason they did it because of political outrage. And the police chief lost his job, and they said somebody had to go. They told him, and he said, dude, based on the law, I don't have enough evidence to do it. And people were like, well, there's political pressure. He said, I took a vow to make charges based on the law. And he was saying that even because Trayvon was black, he's like, I understand. But based on the law given, I don't have enough charges. So, you know what I mean?
But the thing, one thing that Geraldo was saying was tragic events sometimes aren't criminal events. And I'm not, and I don't agree with that. I agree with that statement, but I don't agree that happened in this case. And one thing that they did say that the prosecution did do is try to say this transaction, I don't know, that's not the right word, but this altercation happened right when the fight started. That's what they did well. They did it right when the fight started. They negated all the stuff leading up to the fight, which I think is a travesty in itself, because the kid was just walking home. The kid was just walking home, and somebody came up to him. If George Zimmerman doesn't do anything, Trayvon, as far as in this case, is still alive right now. And that's the thing that's terrible. And people, if the prosecution did a good job of starting it at the altercation, that's fine. But there's actions that you do leading up to something. that you know that you're wrong.
Well, that's what happened. It was the robberies in the community. Melissa always says this: nothing happens in a vacuum. This altercation started happening when the robberies started happening, and the robbers were black, and they got away with murder. Like, that stuff is in your mind when that happens. And before we go, as fathers of black sons, what do you tell Jude, Josh, Jason Jr.? What do you tell them now if they're in this situation?
They're not in this situation. Get in the car. I'll take you to the store.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, like,
and he's 17.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Josh, my oldest son, is 14 years old. If literally, I'm not trying to even be funny. It's almost like, nah, don't walk. I'll take you.
No,
let's go.
Totally
we'll
agree.
Together,
and it reminds me of how when we were little, our parents let us ride our bikes everywhere. I mean, all over the place. And as the things started getting, worse and worse, there's no way I'm giving my kids the freedom that we used to have. Because it's hard to trust people. It's hard to trust the society. It's hard to trust that everybody's looking out. And as we close, a white man actually tweeted this last night. He said, what kind of world will we live in? Wouldn't it be a cool world that we lived in if George Zimmerman offered Trayvon Martin a ride home to get out of the rain?
Right. Wow. I want to say this last thing. This case, everybody has looked at the stand your ground law. And it's sad that this is probably going to be the case that makes the law change.
Right.
And the person that first, made this happen, the George Zimmerman thing, he's the person that walks, and everybody thereafter is going to be, sent to jail or whatever, and he doesn't get sent to jail. This situation sucks, and as a black person, I understand, because like Kev said, we mentioned the plate thing. It's happened to us.
It's happened to us. I'm not surprised.
It happened to us.
We're used to it from police. Yes. We're not used to it from common citizens.
Right.
And that's something that we now have to get used to.
Exactly.
This can happen from common citizens, and how to protect yourself. We can talk all night, man. Yeah. We'll make other videos, because this video will be 30 minutes long. Y'all have a good day. Be good.
Peace.